I know what you are, Amara. You are a lesbian.
What?
The registrar's voice echoed through Seoul City Hall like a death sentence. Do you, Amara Okafor, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? 37 people waited for her answer. None of them knew she had spent the last night in her girlfriend's arms, saying a final goodbye. None of them knew this marriage was a lie. But the most dangerous secret wasn't hers. It was the groom's. The man sitting beside her, the ruthless CEO of the Han Group, turned to her with a cold smile and whispered, I know about her. And if you say no, she dies. Welcome to K Fairy Tale Stories, besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. 3 weeks earlier, Amara had stood in her father's office in Lagos, watching rain hammer against the windows of the Okafor shipping headquarters in Victoria Island. Her father, Chief Emeka Okafor, sat behind his mahogany desk looking 20 years older than his 58 years. The cancer had stolen his weight, his vigor, his certainty. What remained was desperation wrapped in traditional authority. You will marry Kim Jae-hyun, he said in Igbo, the language of final decisions in their family. The Han Group merger is the only thing that saves this company. Your mother, your brothers, your sister, they all depend on this. You understand? Papa, I can't just marry a stranger. Her Korean was fluent after 6 years in Busan, but she defaulted to Igbo when her world was collapsing. There has to be another way. There is no other way. He pushed documents across the desk. Han Group wants expansion into West African shipping routes. We need their capital injection and technology. The marriage binds the deal, makes it personal, unbreakable. His hand trembled as he pointed to the signature line. You are the eldest. This is your duty. Amara looked at the contract, at the photograph of Kim Jae-hyun clipped to the top page. Sharp-featured, cold-eyed, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her car. 32 years old, CEO of a conglomerate worth billions. A man who looked at the camera like he was calculating its market value. What if I refuse? She asked quietly, already knowing the answer. Then in 6 months, when the creditors come, we lose everything. The house, the company your grandfather built, your brother's university fees, your sister's medical treatments, everything. He coughed, the sound wet and terrible. I will die knowing I failed my family. The guilt was a physical weight pressing down on her shoulders, crushing her spine, making it impossible to stand upright under the truth she couldn't speak. That she had someone. That Kioma was waiting for her in a flat in Ikoyi, probably making jollof rice, probably humming that Tiwa Savage song she loved, probably believing they had a future. When do I leave? Amara heard herself ask. 3 days. The wedding is in 3 weeks. His office is sending a private jet. Everything is arranged. That evening, Amara sat on Kioma's balcony overlooking Lagos traffic, watching brake lights blur into rivers of red through her tears. Chioma was silent, which was worse than screaming. Kioma angry, Amara could handle. Chioma quiet meant the hurt went too deep for words. Come with me, Amara said desperately. To Korea, we'll find a way. We'll figure something out once I'm there. Chioma finally turned and her eyes were already saying goodbye. You think a man like that won't have investigators? You think he won't find out about us within a week? And then what happens to your family's precious merger? I'll be careful. We'll be discreet. Like we've been discreet here? Kioma laughed bitterly. Amara, Nigeria wants to jail us for existing. Korea might be more subtle, but it's not exactly progressive. And now you're marrying into one of their most traditional, visible families. There is no room for me in that life. Then I won't go. I'll tell my father no. I'll find another job, send money home. We'll manage somehow. But they both knew it was a fantasy. Amara's salary as a mid-level logistics coordinator barely covered her own rent. Her father needed millions of naira, not thousands. The company employed 200 people, fed 200 families. The weight of those lives was heavier than the weight of 2 women's love. One more night, Kioma whispered. Give me one more night where you're mine. They didn't sleep. They held each other in the darkness and tried to memorize the feeling of safety, of being known, of being home in another person's arms. By dawn, Amara's face was swollen from crying, and Kioma's pillowcase was soaked with both their grief. At the airport 3 days later, they didn't kiss goodbye. Couldn't risk it, even in the private aviation terminal. Just a long hug that felt like drowning and surfacing at the same time. When Amara finally pulled away, Kioma pressed a small package into her hands. Don't open it until you're alone, she said. And Amara, when you're there pretending to be his wife, remember that someone knows. It was obscene in its luxury. Amara sat in cream leather seats and watched Lagos disappear beneath clouds, feeling like she was leaving her entire self behind on that tarmac. She opened Kioma's package mid-flight. Inside was a simple silver bracelet they'd bought together at Lekki Market, and a note in Chioma's elegant handwriting. You are not alone. You are loved. You are brave. Come back to me. Amara fastened the bracelet around her wrist and cried until a flight attendant discreetly offered tissues and looked away. Busan greeted her with rain, and the kind of cold that had no equivalent in Lagos. The driver who met her at Gimhae Airport was professionally courteous and completely silent during the drive to Haeundae. The Han Group headquarters rose like a glass monument to corporate power, reflecting gray sky and steel ocean. She was taken directly to the top floor, to an office that commanded views of Gwangali Beach and the Gwangan Bridge. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, art that belonged in museums, and sitting behind a black marble desk, Kim Jae-hyun. He didn't stand when she entered, didn't offer his hand, just studied her with dark eyes that catalogued every detail as his assistant quietly closed the door behind her, leaving them alone. Miss Okafor, he said in Korean. His voice was controlled, precise, the voice of someone who'd never been told no in his life. Sit, she sat, met his eyes, refused to be the first to look away. You understand the terms of this arrangement? He asked. The marriage binds our companies. You will live in Korea. Public appearances will be required. The relationship must appear genuine to investors, to board members, to the media. I understand it's a business transaction, Amara replied, keeping her voice steady. I don't understand why it requires marriage. A business partnership would serve the same function. Something flickered in his expression. Almost respect. In Korea, marriage signals permanent commitment. It satisfies my more conservative board members and investors. It also prevents my vice chairman from questioning my focus. He paused. Park Tae-sung has been trying to orchestrate a hostile takeover for 2 years. This marriage blocks his primary strategy, which is what? Convincing shareholders I'm too young, too unmarried, too focused on Western expansion to properly lead a traditional Korean conglomerate. You solve that problem. She wanted to argue, to rail against being reduced to a solution. Instead, she asked the question that mattered. What do you expect from me beyond appearances? Discretion, obedience in public, and absolute loyalty. His eyes hardened. I investigated you, Miss Okafor. I know about your education, your work history, your family situation. I know you're competent, which is why I agreed to this arrangement. I need someone intelligent enough to play the role convincingly. The way he said it made her skin crawl. Like she was an actor he'd hired, not a human being he was binding his life to. And what do I get in return? She asked. Beyond saving my family's company? Financial security, legal residency in Korea, access to resources you couldn't otherwise afford. He pushed a document across the desk. This outlines everything. Separate bedrooms, separate lives privately. I don't expect romantic involvement, just the appearance of it. Amara read through the contract, her hands steady despite her racing heart. It was thorough, clinical, covering everything from public appearance schedules to social media protocols to what would happen in the event of divorce. There was no warmth in it, no acknowledgement that they were human beings with feelings and histories and private selves that might resist this kind of transaction. She was about to sign when she noticed a clause near the end. All personal communications subject to review and approval. What does this mean? She pointed to the line. It means I need to ensure you're not sharing confidential business information with outside parties. Standard protocol. It means you'll be monitoring my phone calls, my emails, my entire private life. For the first 6 months. Yes, until trust is established. He said it like it was reasonable, like surveillance was just another business practice. That's not acceptable, Amara said quietly. I need privacy for personal communications. Then this arrangement won't work. He reached for the contract, clearly preparing to end the discussion. She should have let him take it. Should have walked away, flown back to Lagos, faced her father's disappointment and her family's financial collapse with dignity. But she thought of her mother's face, her sister's medical bills, the 200 employees whose livelihoods depended on the merger. She signed. Kim Jae-hyun's assistant delivered 12 boxes to Amara's hotel room. Inside were clothes, perfectly sized, covering every possible social situation. Cocktail dresses, business suits, casual wear, traditional handbook in silk that whispered when it moved. There were shoes, jewelry, even undergarments. All designer labels, all chosen by someone who'd studied her measurements with clinical precision. It felt like being dressed for a funeral. Her funeral. The wedding preparation moved with corporate efficiency. No engagement period, no romantic courtship, just contracts and scheduling, and a wedding planner who spoke to her like she was a project to be managed rather than a bride to be celebrated. 3 days before the ceremony, Amara broke protocol. She bought a burner phone from a small shop in Seomyeon, paid cash, and called Kioma from her hotel bathroom with the shower running to muffle her voice. "I can't do this," she whispered when Kioma answered. "I can't marry him. He's cold, controlling, and I feel like I'm signing away my entire self." "Then come home," Kioma said immediately. "We'll figure something else out. I don't care if we're poor. I don't care if it's hard. I just want you." Amara closed her eyes, pressed the phone harder against her ear, like she could pull Kioma through the distance by force of will. My father would lose everything. The company, the house, my sister's treatments. I can't let that happen. "So what do we do?" Kioma's voice cracked. "Just give up on us?" "No, we wait. I'll find a way to see you. We'll be careful. This marriage, it's just a piece of paper. It doesn't change what we are." But they both heard the lie in it. The wedding took place on a gray November morning at Seoul City Hall because Jaehyun insisted on civil ceremony rather than traditional fanfare. Amara wore white lace, Western style, because it photographed better for international press. Her family flew in the day before, her mother's eyes red from crying, her father's hand trembling when he walked her down the short aisle. 37 people attended, business associates mostly, a few distant relatives of Jaehyun's, her brothers in suits that didn't quite fit, looking lost in this world of Korean formality and corporate power. The registrar was an older woman with a kind face that couldn't hide what she saw. Two people standing before her with no love between them, just necessity and resignation. "Do you, Kim Jae-hyun, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do, no hesitation, like signing another contract." "Do you, Amara Okafor, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" The room waited. Her mother's face was hopeful. Her father's was desperate. Her brothers looked uncomfortable, like they sensed something wrong but couldn't name it. And Jae-hyun leaned close, his breath cold against her ear, and whispered the words that turned her world to ice. "I know about her, and if you say no, she dies." Amara's blood stopped moving. Her vision tunneled. She turned to look at him and saw no mercy in his eyes, just calculation and absolute certainty that he'd won. "What did you say?" she whispered back. Chioma Adebayo, journalist. Lives in Ikoyi, Lagos. Drives a blue Honda Civic. Takes the 3rd mainland bridge to work every morning. His smile was a blade. Very predictable route. Very easy to arrange an accident. "You wouldn't dare. Try me." His hand found hers, squeezed just hard enough to hurt. "I told you I investigated you. Did you think I missed something as significant as a long-term relationship? I know everywhere you've been, everyone you've seen, every phone call you've made. And I know that if you walk away from this marriage right now, your girlfriend becomes a liability I'll eliminate." The registrar cleared her throat. "Miss Okafor?" Amara's mind raced. Could she scream? Could she expose him right here, in front of everyone? But who would believe her? He was Kim Jae-hyun, powerful, respected, and she was just a Nigerian woman with no proof, no leverage, no way to protect Kioma from an ocean away. "I do," she heard herself say. The words tasted like poison. The registrar beamed, oblivious to the violence that had just transpired. "You may kiss the bride." Jae-hyun's lips touched hers. Cold, perfunctory, a seal on a contract written in her compliance and Kioma's blood. The photographs would later appear in Forbes Korea and the Korea Herald. Power couple. Han Group secures African expansion through strategic marriage. What the cameras didn't capture was the conversation that happened in the limousine immediately after, when the last guest had departed, and they were finally alone. "Where is she?" Amara demanded. Her hands were shaking. "Where is Kioma right now?" "Safe," Jae-hyun said, loosening his tie. "As long as you cooperate." "You son of a bitch! You threatened to kill someone to force me into this marriage." "I threatened to arrange an accident. There's a difference." He pulled out his phone, showed her a live security feed. Kioma's apartment building in Lagos. Chioma herself, visible through her living room window, moving around her kitchen, completely unaware that her life hung by the thread of Amara's obedience. See, safe. For now, Amara wanted to attack him, to claw his eyes out, to hurt him the way he was hurting her. But violence wouldn't save Kioma. Only compliance would. "What do you want?" she asked through clenched teeth. "What I told you from the beginning. Obedience, discretion. And your help destroying someone who's trying to destroy me." He pocketed his phone. "Park Tae-sung, my vice chairman, is orchestrating a hostile takeover. This marriage creates an international alliance that blocks his primary strategy. But he suspects it's not genuine. He's looking for evidence to discredit me. So this is about your corporate war, and I'm just collateral damage. Your leverage," he corrected. "Useful leverage. And as long as you remain useful, your girlfriend stays alive." The limousine pulled up to a high-rise in Hyundai, glass and steel reflecting the ocean. Jae-hyun's penthouse occupied the entire top floor. The elevator opened directly into the living space. All floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, art that whispered money and taste and absolute control. "This is your home now," he said, walking through like a museum curator. "Your bedroom is to the left, mine to the right. We maintain separate spaces. Kitchen staff arrives at 6 every morning, leaves by 8 in the evening. Security is present at all times but remains discreet." He opened the door to what would be her room. It was beautiful, impersonal, and felt exactly like a cage with expensive wallpaper. Her clothes were already hanging in the closet. Her books were on the shelves. Photographs of her family sat on the desk. He'd transplanted pieces of her life without her permission, arranged them like museum exhibits. "You researched more than my relationship," she said quietly, looking at the photos. "You researched everything, of course. I needed to know who I was binding myself to." He leaned against the doorframe. "You're intelligent, educated, competent. Your work in logistics management shows strategic thinking. You speak 4 languages fluently. You have no criminal record, no scandals, no liabilities beyond the obvious one. The obvious one being that I'm gay. Bisexual, technically, according to your university dating history. But yes, your current relationship with a woman presents certain complications." He said it clinically, like discussing a minor contract clause, "which is why I'm monitoring it. And if I refuse your monitoring, if I contact her anyway, then accidents happen." He pushed off the doorframe. "I'm not a monster, Miss Okafor. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I will protect my position and my company by any means necessary. Make your choices accordingly." He left her standing in the beautiful cage, surrounded by pieces of her life that no longer felt like hers. That night, Amara couldn't sleep. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet, the weight of what she'd agreed to too heavy to bear lying down. At 3 in the morning, she found herself on the terrace, wrapped in a blanket, watching the ocean reflect city lights like scattered diamonds. Jae-hyun was already there, smoking a cigarette, his earlier coldness replaced by something closer to exhaustion. "Can't sleep either?" he asked without turning around. She didn't answer, just stood at the railing, maintaining distance. "I won't apologize for the threat," he said finally. "You'd have run otherwise. You'd have chosen your girlfriend over your family's survival, and I couldn't risk that. This marriage is too important. Important enough to threaten murder? Important enough to threaten the appearance of murder," he corrected. "I told you I'm not a monster. I have no intention of actually harming anyone. But you needed to believe I would. That's supposed to make me feel better?" He stubbed out his cigarette. "No, it's supposed to make you understand the situation clearly. We're both trapped in this arrangement. I need you to play your role convincingly. And you need me to keep your girlfriend safe. It's mutually assured cooperation. Cooperation implies choice, and you had choices." He finally turned to look at her. "You chose to sign the contract. You chose to get on the plane. You chose to say I do. At every step you could have walked away. Yes, the consequences would have been severe, but they were still choices." The words cut because they were partially true. She had chosen compliance over confrontation, safety over courage, her family's survival over her own freedom. But calling it choice felt like calling a hostage negotiation a conversation. "You don't know anything about me," she said quietly. "You researched facts, but you don't know who I am. Then tell me..." His eyes were dark, unreadable in the city light. "Who is Amara Okafor? Someone you're too cold to understand." "Try me," she laughed bitterly. "I'm someone who's been hiding who I am since I understood what it meant. In Nigeria, people like me get arrested, beaten, killed for existing. I learned to split myself in 2. The daughter my parents see, and the person I actually am. And now you're forcing me into another mask, another performance, another life spent pretending." Something shifted in his expression. Not sympathy exactly, but recognition. "I understand more than you think," he said quietly. "You think I chose this life? This company? This pressure? This constant performance of respectability? I was groomed for this position since birth. My father built Han Group from nothing, and before he died, he made me promise to protect it, expand it, never let it falter." His voice dropped. "I've been performing too. Every day, every meeting, every decision calculated for maximum strategic value. That doesn't make us the same. No, but it means we both understand the weight of duty, the way it crushes the parts of yourself that don't serve the larger purpose." He moved slightly closer. "I'm not asking you to like me. I'm asking you to survive this with me. We're bound now. We might as well make it bearable." Amara looked at him, really looked, and saw exhaustion beneath the control. Saw someone who'd learned to weaponize coldness because vulnerability was too expensive in his world. "I need to contact her," Amara said. "Chioma, she needs to know I'm okay. No direct contact. not until Park is neutralized. But I can arrange for messages to be passed through secure channels. Limited, monitored, but possible. It wasn't enough. Would never be enough. But it was more than she'd had moments ago. Fine, she said. What do we do now? Now, he said, walking back inside. We prepare for the performance of our lives. By the end of the first week, Amara understood that her marriage was less a relationship and more a military campaign. Every public appearance was strategized, every photograph calculated, every social media post reviewed by Jaehyun's communications team before posting. They attended a charity gala at the Paradise Hotel. Busan's elite gathered to donate money they'd never miss to causes they'd never think about again. Amara wore a gown that cost more than her old monthly salary, and Jaehyun's hand never left her waist, possessive and guiding like she was a chess piece he was moving across the board. Smile more, he whispered as they posed for photographers. Lean into me. Look at me like you're happy. She did. She'd learned to split herself, remember? This was just another mask. Park Tae-sung approached midway through the evening. He was older than Jaehyun, silver-haired and distinguished, with eyes that calculated the value of everything they saw. Chairman Kim, he said with a slight bow. And the new Mrs. Kim. Congratulations on your marriage. Such an unexpected development. Thank you, Vice Chairman Park, Jaehyun replied smoothly. Amara and I are very happy. Park's eyes slid to Amara, assessing. Your family's shipping company must be thrilled about the merger. Quite an advantageous match. It's mutually beneficial, Amara said, keeping her voice warm despite the ice in her veins. My father's routes in West Africa, combined with Han Group's technology and capital, create significant expansion opportunities. How diplomatic. Park smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Tell me, how did you two meet? It's unusual for Chairman Kim to pursue marriage so suddenly. He's been quite resistant to the board's suggestions over the years. Jaehyun's hand tightened on her waist. Warning, Amara improvised, pulling from the cover story they'd prepared. We met during initial merger negotiations. He came to Lagos last year for site inspections. We kept in touch after he returned to Korea. The relationship developed naturally from there. Naturally, Park repeated, tasting the word like wine he suspected had turned. How romantic, almost too romantic for Chairman Kim's usual pragmatic approach to business. Even pragmatists fall in love occasionally, Jaehyun said with a smile that looked genuine, but felt like ice. Now, if you'll excuse us, we promised to speak with the Japanese ambassador. They moved away smoothly, but Amara felt Park's eyes following them across the room. He doesn't believe us, she said quietly once they were out of earshot. No, Jaehyun agreed, which is why we need to be more convincing. Starting now, pulled her onto the dance floor, one hand at her waist, the other clasping hers. They moved together, and to anyone watching, it probably looked romantic. What they couldn't see was the whispered critique he delivered with every turn. Relax your shoulders. You look like you're being held hostage. I am being held hostage. Metaphorically, not literally. There's a difference. Look at me like I'm saying something charming. You're giving me performance notes. That's the opposite of charming. Then pretend better. His eyes held hers. This isn't just about us. If Park proves this marriage is fraudulent, the merger collapses. Your family loses everything, and Kiyoma's safety ends with it. So smile like you mean it. She smiled. It felt like breaking. After the gala, in the car ride home, Jaehyun pulled out his phone and showed her photographs. Her and Kiyoma, walking together in Lagos, holding hands in a market, kissing in Kiyoma's apartment. Each image was a violation. Proof that his surveillance had been comprehensive, invasive, absolute. I had these before you ever signed the contract, he said quietly. I needed to know what I was working with, who I might need to control. You're a monster. I'm practical. His voice was matter of fact. In my world, information is currency. I invested in knowing yours. And now you're using it against me. No, I'm using it to protect both of us. Because if Park finds these, he weaponizes them. He'll claim I married a woman with a secret lesbian relationship, destroying my credibility and tanking the merger. Then he'll leak the photos in Nigeria, where homosexuality is criminalized. Kiyoma faces arrest, imprisonment, worse. He pocketed the phone. These images stay with me, safely encrypted, hurting no one, as long as you cooperate. Amara stared out the window at Busan's nighttime lights, feeling the trap tighten with every kilometer. The following morning, Amara woke to find an acting coach sitting in the living room. The woman was in her 50s, elegant, with the kind of face that suggested she'd spent decades teaching people how to lie convincingly. Mrs. Kim, the woman said, standing and bowing, I'm Han Mi-suk. Your husband has hired me to help you both appear more naturally affectionate in public settings. Amara looked at Jae-hyun, who was already dressed for work, sipping coffee like this was perfectly normal. You hired an intimacy coach? I hired someone to ensure our performance is flawless, he corrected. Yesterday at the gala you were stiff. Your smiles looked forced. We need to do better. For the next 3 hours, Han Mi-suk put them through exercises that felt like torture disguised as theater training. Stand closer. No, closer than that. Touch his arm when you laugh. Jae-hyun, your hand should rest naturally on her lower back, not hover like you're afraid of contact. Kiss her like you mean it, not like you're checking off a task list. The kissing practice was the worst. Clinical, mechanical. Mi-suk critiquing their technique like a director reviewing a poorly rehearsed scene. More warmth, less tension. You're supposed to be newlyweds, not strangers at a business conference. By the time Mi-suk left, Amara felt scraped raw. Every practice touch a reminder that her body was no longer entirely hers to control. That evening, Jae-hyun found her on the terrace again, staring at the ocean. He joined her in silence, and for several minutes they just stood there, two people learning to orbit each other without collision. I know this is difficult, he said finally. The pretending, the surveillance, all of it. But it's temporary. Once Park is neutralized, things will ease. When will that be? 6 months? A year? Forever? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Amara pulled out her phone, the one he'd given her to replace her personal device. Can I at least send a message to Kyoma? Something to let her know I'm alive and thinking about her? Jae-hyun considered, then nodded. Write it, I'll review it before it's sent. She typed carefully, choosing words that wouldn't reveal too much but would carry meaning only Kyoma would understand. Remember the bracelet you gave me? I wear it every day. It reminds me that distance is temporary, but what we have is permanent. I'm safe, I'm surviving. I'm counting the days until I can see you again. Jae-hyun read it, nodded, and forwarded it to one of his security contacts in Lagos, who would deliver it through a burner phone, untraceable. Thank you, Amara said quietly. Don't thank me. I'm not doing this out of kindness. I'm doing it because desperate people make reckless choices, and I need you focused. But there was something in the way he said it that suggested the coldness was a shield, not the whole truth. By the end of the second week, they'd developed a routine. Mornings were separate, moving through the apartment like ghosts who happened to share a haunting. Afternoons meant work. Jae-hyun at Han Group headquarters, Amara supposedly settling into her new life, but actually spending hours reviewing logistics reports from her father's company, maintaining that connection to her old self. Evenings were for public appearances or coaching sessions with Mi-suk, learning to touch each other without flinching, to laugh at each other's jokes with genuine-seeming warmth, to create the illusion of intimacy where only necessity existed. Nights were for the terrace, where the pretending stopped, and they could just be two people trapped in the same elegant cage. On the 14th day, Jae-hyun received intelligence that changed everything. He called Amara into his home office, his expression darker than she'd seen before. Park has escalated, he said without preamble. He's hired a private investigator, foreign, expensive, specializing in exposing corporate fraud and personal scandals. What does that mean for us? It means he's looking for proof this marriage is fake. He'll investigate your background, your relationships, everywhere you've been, everyone you've known. He paused. He's going to Lagos. Amara's heart stopped. Shioma, exactly. If his investigator finds evidence of your relationship, Park weaponizes it. The marriage gets exposed as fraudulent. The merger collapses. And Kyoma becomes a liability he'll exploit. What do we do? Jae-hyun was already making calls. Rapid Korean she couldn't quite follow. When he hung up, his expression was grim. I'm extracting her. My security team in Lagos will get her out before Park's investigator makes contact. Get her out? To where? Here. Seoul.I have a safe house in Seongsu-dong where she'll be protected until this situation resolves. You're bringing Kyoma to Korea? The idea was simultaneously terrifying and desperately hopeful. I'm protecting an asset, he corrected. If Park finds her in Lagos, vulnerable and unaware, he'll use her to destroy us both. If she's here, under my control, she's neutralized as a threat. She's not a threat, she's a person. In my world, every person is a potential threat until proven otherwise. He stood, gathering his coat. The extraction happens tonight. She'll be here by tomorrow evening. Can I see her? Eventually. Once she's secure and the situation is assessed. His eyes held hers. Understand something, Amara. I'm not doing this to be kind. I'm doing this because your emotional stability affects your performance, and your performance affects my survival. Everything is strategy. But she was beginning to suspect that his insistence on strategy masked something more human underneath. Something he couldn't afford to acknowledge. The next day dragged like years. Amara couldn't eat. couldn't focus, could only pace the apartment and imagine every possible disaster. What if Keoma refused to leave? What if Park's investigator got there first? What if something went wrong during the extraction? That evening, Jae-hyun returned with news. She's safe. My team got her out of Lagos 3 hours before Park's investigator arrived at her apartment. She's on a flight now. Arrives at Incheon at 11 tonight. Can I go to the airport? No, too visible. Park has people watching us. I'll have her brought to the safe house. And tomorrow, once I've confirmed security protocols, you can visit. Amara wanted to argue but understood the logic. If she appeared too eager to see Keoma, too emotional about a supposed stranger's arrival, it would raise questions they couldn't afford. That night, she barely slept. When morning finally came, Jae-hyun was already in the kitchen, coffee made, her favorite breakfast laid out with uncharacteristic thoughtfulness. Eat first, he said, then we'll go. The safe house was a modest apartment in a quiet Seongsu neighborhood. Nothing like the Haeundae penthouse's ostentation. Jae-hyun's security stood outside, discreet but present. 20 minutes, he said as he unlocked the door. That's all I can risk without arousing suspicion. Make it count. Then he stepped aside and Amara saw her. Chioma stood in the center of the small living room, wearing the same jeans and Ankara print top she'd worn in Lagos, looking exhausted and terrified, and so achingly familiar that Amara's composure shattered completely. They crossed the space in seconds, crashing into each other's arms, holding on like drowning people finding solid ground. Chioma smelled like home, like Lagos rain and shea butter and everything Amara had lost. I'm sorry, Amara whispered into Kioma's hair. I'm so sorry, I didn't know he'd do this. I didn't know he'd bring you here. Men with guns showed up at my apartment, Kioma said, voice shaking. They said I was in danger, that I had to leave immediately. I thought I was being kidnapped. I thought I'd never see you again. You're safe now. Amara pulled back just enough to see her face. He's protecting you. He's controlling me, Kioma corrected. She looked toward the door where Jae-hyun waited outside, giving them privacy but monitoring the time. That's your husband? The man who threatened you into this marriage? Yes, and now I'm his prisoner too. You're his protected asset, Amara said, echoing his language and hating how it sounded. It's different, is it? Chioma's eyes filled with tears. I had to leave everything. My job, my family, my entire life. I'm in a country where I don't speak the language. Dependent on a man who sees me as a problem to manage. How is this protection? Because the alternative was Park's investigator finding you, exposing us, and watching everything collapse. Amara held her hands tighter. In Lagos, they could have arrested you. Here, at least you're safe. Safe, Kioma repeated bitterly, in a cage. From outside, Jae-hyun's voice, quiet but firm, 5 minutes. They used those minutes to just hold each other, to breathe the same air, to remember what it felt like to be together without performance or surveillance. When Jae-hyun finally knocked, neither wanted to let go. I'll find a way to see you again, Amara promised. I'll figure something out. Kioma touched her face. You're different, harder, like you're turning into something you're not. I'm surviving. At what cost? There was no good answer to that question. In the car ride back to Haeundae, Jae-hyun was unusually quiet. Finally he spoke. She's angry. At you, at me, at the situation. That's expected. She's right to be angry. You uprooted her entire life. I saved her life, he corrected. Park's investigator is thorough. He'd have found evidence, leaked it to Nigerian authorities, ensured her arrest. Would you prefer that outcome? I'd prefer she never had to be in this situation at all. Yes, well, we don't always get to choose our circumstances. His voice was tired. We just choose how we respond to them. Something in his tone made Amara look at him more carefully. You understand what it's like, she said slowly. Being trapped, performing a life you don't want. He didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter. My father built Han Group from nothing, literally nothing. He started as a dock worker, saved every one, invested brilliantly, took risks that should have destroyed him, but somehow didn't. By the time I was born, he was already wealthy. By the time I was 10, he was building an empire. He paused. He died when I was 25. Heart attack at his desk, still working, still pushing. His last words to me were protect what I built. That's a heavy burden. It's the only burden that matters. He looked at her. You think I enjoy this? The constant pressure. The performance of being someone worthy of that legacy. I'm 32 years old and I've never made a single choice that was purely for myself. Every decision is calculated for maximum strategic value to the company. Then why not step away? Let someone else run it? He laughed, bitter and sharp. Because 2,000 employees depend on Han Group for their livelihoods. Because my father's legacy deserves protection. Because I was raised to believe that personal happiness is selfish when you have the power to create stability for so many others. Amara heard her own justifications echoed in his words. They were both martyrs to duty, both sacrificing themselves on the altar of other people's needs. We're more similar than I want to admit, she said quietly. Yes, he agreed, which makes us either perfect partners or mutually assured destruction. Time will tell which. That night, unable to sleep again, Amara found herself in Jae-hyun's study, looking at the photographs on his desk. His father, stern and weathered, his mother, who died when he was young, a younger version of himself, maybe 20, standing with another man at what looked like a university graduation. The other man in the photo was beautiful. Warm eyes, genuine smile, hand casually draped over young Jae-hyun's shoulder with easy affection that present-day Jae-hyun seemed incapable of. That's Min-seok, Jae-hyun's voice came from behind her. She hadn't heard him enter. We met at university. He was my only friend when my father died. He looks important to you. He is. Jae-hyun moved to stand beside her, looking at the photograph. He's been my head of security for 6 years. The only person I trust completely. Something in the way he said it made Amara understand. The only person you trust. The only person who knows the real you. Jae-hyun's jaw tightened. Don't psychoanalyze me. I'm not. I'm just recognizing what I should have seen before. You're not just protecting business interests with this marriage. You're protecting him. The silence confirmed it. Does Park know? She asked. Park suspects. He's been investigating for 2 years but hasn't found concrete proof. This marriage was supposed to end his speculation permanently. By proving you're straight and traditionally married. Exactly. Jae-hyun took the photograph, put it back on his desk. Min-seok understood why it was necessary. Understood that my position as chairman, the company's stability, everything depends on maintaining certain appearances. So we're both beards, Amara said. Both performing heterosexuality to protect the people we actually love. The clinical term is lavender marriage, though I prefer strategic partnership. His eyes met hers. Does it change anything? Knowing that my threat to Kyoma comes from someone who understands exactly what it's like to hide who you are? It makes you more human, she admitted, and somehow more monstrous because you know the pain you're inflicting. Yes, he agreed simply. But monster or human, I'll do whatever's necessary to protect Min-seok and this company. That's who I am. The following week, Park made his next move. A board meeting was called. Emergency session. All senior management required to attend. Jae-hyun brought Amara, unusual but strategically calculated. She sat in the observation gallery while he faced the board. 15 men and 2 women, all older, all watching him with varying degrees of support and suspicion. Park stood to present. Chairman Kim's sudden marriage raises concerns about his judgment and the company's strategic direction. I've conducted independent research into the merger with Okafor Shipping. The financials don't justify the marriage requirement. This appears to be a personal arrangement disguised as business necessity. He presented spreadsheets, analyses, projections that painted the merger as moderately beneficial, but not essential. The implication was clear. Jae-hyun had married for personal reasons he was hiding behind business justification. Additionally, Park continued, I've received information suggesting Mrs. Kim has maintained inappropriate relationships that cast doubt on the marriage's legitimacy. He clicked to the next slide. Photographs of Amara and Kyoma in Lagos, walking together, sitting close at a cafe. The kinds of images that could be interpreted as friendship, or something more, depending on the viewer's assumptions. Amara's heart stopped. How had he gotten those? Jae-hyun's investigators had the originals, secured and encrypted. Unless there had been a leak, or Park had his own surveillance from months ago. Jae-hyun remained calm, almost bored. Vice Chairman Park, are you suggesting that my wife having female friends is evidence of marital fraud? I'm suggesting the nature of this relationship warrants investigation. Because she's close to another woman? Jae-hyun's voice was ice. In 2024, that's your evidence? Friendship between women? Several board members shifted uncomfortably. Park's accusation was starting to look like prejudice rather than business concern. Then let me be explicit, Park said, dropping the diplomatic tone. I have testimony from sources in Lagos that your wife maintained a romantic relationship with this woman, Kyoma Adebayo. That relationship continued until immediately before your marriage. I'm asking the board to investigate whether this marriage is genuine or a fraudulent arrangement designed to block my legitimate concerns about company direction. The room erupted. Board members arguing, some supporting Park's right to question, others condemning the invasion of privacy. Enough, Jae-hyun's voice cut through the chaos. You want the truth about my marriage? Fine, let's discuss truth. He stood, walked to the presentation screen, and connected his own laptop. What appeared were financial documents, accounts, transactions, years of data that even Amara didn't understand initially. "What you're looking at," Jae-hyun said calmly, "is evidence of Vice Chairman Park's systematic embezzlement from Han Group. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Shell corporations in Singapore. Real estate purchases in Dubai that can't be explained by his declared income. He's been stealing from this company for 5 years." Park's face drained of color. "That's fabricated. You can't prove every transaction is documented, backed by banking records and forensic accounting analysis." Jae-hyun's voice was surgical in its precision. "My wife, who you've been investigating so thoroughly, is a trained logistics analyst with expertise in international finance. She identified the irregularities 3 weeks ago while reviewing company files I gave her access to as part of her integration into our family business." Amara's mind raced. This was news to her. She'd done no such analysis. But then she understood. He was using her, crediting her with intelligence work he'd clearly done himself, making her part of the solution instead of just a prop in his performance. "I recommend," Jae-hyun continued, "that Vice Chairman Park be removed from his position immediately and that criminal charges be filed." He looked directly at Park. "You wanted to investigate fraud? Let's start with yours." The board voted. 12 to 5, Park was finished. Security escorted him out, still protesting, still claiming the evidence was manufactured. But his protest sounded hollow against the weight of documentation Jae-hyun had presented. In the car afterward, Amara finally spoke. "I didn't find that evidence. I've never even looked at Han Group's internal finances." "I know," Jae-hyun said. "I've been investigating Park for 18 months. I just needed the right moment to strike. And he gave it to me by attacking you. So you used me, made me part of your counterattack without asking." Yes, his honesty was almost refreshing. "I needed you to appear competent and integral to company operations. Now the board sees you as an asset, not just a decorative wife. That protects both of us moving forward. Everything is strategy with you. Everything has to be," he looked at her. "But for what it's worth, you could do that analysis. You're intelligent enough. I wasn't lying about your capabilities, just about what you'd actually done." It should have felt like a compliment. Instead, it felt like being seen and used simultaneously. That evening, the news broke. Vice Chairman Park removed from Han Group amid embezzlement investigation. Stock prices rose on the news. Investors expressed confidence in Chairman Kim's leadership. The marriage that had seemed suspicious now looked like a brilliant strategic move, bringing in international expertise exactly when the company needed it. But the victory felt hollow. "Can I see Kioma now?" Amara asked. "Now that Park is gone. Can she leave the safe house?" Jae-hyun was quiet for a long moment. "Park is gone, but his allies aren't. His investigators are still active. If Kioma appears publicly, it raises questions about why she's in Seoul, what her relationship to you is, why she arrived exactly when Park started investigating." He paused. "She needs to stay hidden for at least another month while the situation stabilizes." "A month," Amara repeated. "She's been here 2 weeks already." "You're asking her to hide for 6 weeks total?" "I'm asking her to survive. There's a difference. You're asking her to be invisible. That's not survival, that's erasure. Then what do you suggest?" He turned to face her fully. "Bring her out publicly? Introduce her as what? Your friend from Lagos who happened to move to Seoul the same week I took down my vice chairman? The timing alone raises flags. The scrutiny would destroy us both." He was right, and she hated that he was right. "I need to see her," Amara said. More than 20 minutes in a monitored apartment. Real time. Enough to actually talk. Jae-hyun considered this. "Tomorrow is Saturday. I have a lunch meeting with Japanese investors in Centum City. It'll last 3 hours minimum. I'll have Min-seok drive you to the safe house. You can have that time with her." "Why would you allow that?" "Because you're starting to fracture, and I need you functional." His voice was clinical again. "Consider it maintenance on a valuable asset." But the next morning, when Min-seok picked her up, he was surprisingly kind. The man from the photograph, with warm eyes and a gentle smile that Jae-hyun never wore in public. "He talks about you," Min-seok said in English as they drove through Busan's streets. "Says you're stronger than you look." "That's high praise from him. He threatened my girlfriend to force me into this marriage." "That's not praise, that's abuse." "Yes, it is." Min-seok's agreement was matter of fact. "He does terrible things to protect what matters to him. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying I understand how he thinks. You've known him a long time. 15 years since university. I've watched him become this. Watched the pressure and responsibility calcify him into someone who can't afford softness." Min-seok glanced at her. "But you're changing something in him. Small things. He asks how you're doing. Worries if you're eating enough. Feels guilty about Kioma's situation. He should feel guilty." "Yes," Min-seok agreed again. but guilt is new for him. Usually he just calcifies further. You're making him feel things he spent years avoiding. They arrived at the safe house. Min-suk handed her a key. 3 hours. I'll text when we're 10 minutes from return. Make it count. Chioma opened the door before Amara could knock. She looked thinner, tired, wearing borrowed clothes that didn't quite fit. But her eyes lit up when she saw Amara alone, without handlers or time limits. 3 hours? Chioma asked. 3 hours. They spent the first hour just existing together. No talking, just sitting on the couch, Chioma's head on Amara's shoulder, fingers interlaced, breathing synchronized, remembering what it felt like to be whole. I'm going crazy here, Chioma finally said. This apartment is nice, but it's a prison. I can't leave, can't call my family, can't even look out the windows without security telling me to step back. I know, I'm sorry. I'm trying to find a solution. The solution is leaving him, coming back to Lagos with me. We'll find a way to help your family differently. There is no other way. Amara had run these calculations 1,000 times. My father's company will collapse without the merger. 200 people lose their jobs. My sister's medical treatments stop. My brothers drop out of university. All of that happens if I leave. So we just accept this? Living in separate cities, hidden relationships, occasional stolen hours like this? What choice do we have? Chioma pulled away, stood up, paced the small living room. I don't know, but I know I can't live like this forever. I'm 28 years old. I want a life. I want to walk down a street holding your hand. I want to introduce you to my family as my girlfriend, not my friend. I want a future that's not defined by hiding. I want that too, do you? Because from where I'm standing, you're adapting. You're learning to play the role. You're becoming his wife in everything but name. The accusation stung because it carried truth. She was adapting, learning to touch him without flinching, to laugh at his observations, to present a united front that was starting to feel less like performance and more like partnership. He's not a monster, Amara said quietly. He's trapped like we are, protecting someone he loves by hiding who he is. So you're defending him now? I'm understanding him, there's a difference. And that understanding, does it come with feelings? Chioma's voice was sharp with hurt. Are you developing something for him? No, yes. I don't know. Amara put her head in her hands. Not romantic feelings, but something, respect maybe, recognition of shared struggle. He's not evil. He's just someone who's learned that the only way to survive his world is to control everything in it. That's a nice rationalization for abuse. It is abuse, Amara agreed. But it's also more complicated than that. He saved you from Park's investigation. He gave me these hours with you. He's capable of small kindnesses even while maintaining control. Stockholm Syndrome, Chioma said flatly. You're sympathizing with your captor. Maybe I am. Or maybe I'm just trying to survive by seeing him as human instead of monster. It's easier to endure this if I can find something redeemable in him. The argument spiraled from there. Accusations and defenses, hurt feelings and desperate justifications. By the time Min-seok texted the 10-minute warning, they were both exhausted, and nothing was resolved. I love you, Amara said at the door. That hasn't changed. But we have, Chioma replied. Both of us. And I don't know if we can come back from this. The drive back to Hyundai was silent. Min-seok didn't ask how it went. Maybe he already knew from Amara's expression. Jae-hyun was home when she arrived. Tie loosened, looking drained from his own performance with the Japanese investors. He took one look at her face and poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking. Bad visit? She's miserable. Feeling trapped. Blaming me for adapting to this situation. Are you adapting? Amara took the whiskey, drank it in one burning swallow. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. 6 weeks ago, my life made sense. I knew who I was, what I wanted, where I belonged. Now everything is fractured and I can't find solid ground. Welcome to my entire existence, Jae-hyun said quietly. That feeling never goes away. You just learn to function through it. How? By accepting that certainty is a luxury you can't afford. By making peace with moral ambiguity. By understanding that sometimes there are no good choices, just less terrible ones. He refilled both glasses, and by finding allies in unexpected places. Is that what we are, allies? What else would you call it? We're bound by necessity. Surviving through cooperation, protecting each other because our fates are intertwined. His eyes met hers. That's closer to alliance than marriage. She wanted to argue, but he was right. They were partners in survival, nothing more, nothing less. The following week, everything changed. Min-seok was in a car accident. Minor injuries, the hospital said. But it shook Jae-hyun in ways Amara had never seen. He spent the night at the hospital, refusing to leave Min-seok's bedside. And when he finally came home the next morning, his mask was completely gone. She found him in his study, still wearing yesterday's clothes, a glass of whiskey and shaking hands. He didn't acknowledge her presence, just stared at nothing with eyes that had seen too much. Is he okay? Amara asked quietly. Broken ribs, concussion. They're keeping him for observation. Jae-hyun's voice was hollow. I can't even be there. Can't hold his hand, can't comfort him, can't be what he needs because someone might see, might question, might understand what he is to me. Amara sat down across from him. How long have you been together? 15 years, since university. He was the only person who saw past the performance, who knew the real me before I forgot who that was. His hand tightened on the glass. He's had to watch me marry someone else. He understood why, but understanding doesn't make it hurt less. No, it doesn't. I thought I could do this. Thought I could maintain the separation between public performance and private truth. But watching him in that hospital bed, knowing I can't even visit without raising questions, it's destroying something fundamental in me. It was the first time she'd seen him truly vulnerable, the first time the control had slipped completely. And in that vulnerability, she recognized herself, recognized the cost of performing lives they didn't want for people they did love. She sat with him in silence, not offering platitudes or solutions, just presence. Sometimes that was the only kindness possible. I'm sorry, he said after a long time, for threatening Kioma, for forcing you into this, for causing pain to protect myself. I don't know how to be any other way, but I'm sorry for the damage it causes. The apology felt significant, real in a way his earlier justifications hadn't been. We're both doing terrible things to survive, Amara said. Both sacrificing people we love for larger purposes. That makes us either tragic heroes or just cowards. I haven't decided which. Can it be both? Maybe. They sat there until sunrise, two people learning that alliance sometimes looked like shared grief and expensive whiskey. By the end of the month, Park's remaining allies on the board had been systematically removed or neutralized. The company's stock was at an all-time high. International investors praised the Okafor merger as visionary, and Jae-hyun's position as chairman was more secure than it had been in years. But security came with costs neither of them had fully calculated. Chioma called from the safe house, voice brittle with exhaustion. I need to leave. I need to go back to Lagos or I'm going to lose my mind here. It's not safe yet, Amara said, though the words felt hollow. It's never going to be safe, you know that. There will always be another threat, another reason I have to hide. This is my life now and I can't live it. What are you saying? I can't be the secret you visit between public appearances with your husband. I deserve more than that. You deserve everything, Amara whispered, and I can't give it to you. No, you can't. So I'm going home. Jae-hyun's people will help me get back safely. But Amara, I'm going home to build a life without you. I have to, for my own survival. The call ended. Amara sat on the terrace where she'd spent so many sleepless nights and felt something fundamental crack inside her chest. Jae-hyun found her there an hour later. Min-seok had told him about Kyoma's decision. I'm sorry, he said, and meant it. You got what you wanted. The threat is neutralized. That's not what I wanted. His voice was quiet. I wanted everyone to survive this with minimal damage, but survival and happiness aren't the same thing. No, they're not. They stood at the railing, looking out at Busan's lights. Two people who'd achieved everything they set out to protect and lost everything that made protection meaningful. What do we do now? Amara asked. We keep going. We honor the commitments we made. We live with the consequences of our choices. He paused. And maybe, eventually, we forgive ourselves for choosing survival over love. Do you think that's possible? I don't know. But I think we have to try. 2 years later, Amara stood in the Han Group boardroom as co-CEO, her expertise in international logistics having proven invaluable to the company's expansion. The merger with Okafor Shipping had exceeded all projections. Her father's company was thriving. Her family was secure and she was empty. She and Jae-hyun had found an equilibrium. Not love, but genuine partnership. Mutual respect built on shared struggle and hard-won understanding. They'd created something functional, even occasionally warm. But it would never be what either of them actually wanted. Min-seok lived openly in the Haeundae penthouse now. Not as Jae-hyun's partner officially, but as head of security who happened to occupy the second bedroom. People suspected, but suspicion without proof was just gossip, and Jae-hyun's position was strong enough to withstand gossip. Chioma had returned to Lagos, resumed her journalism career, and eventually started dating someone else. Amara saw the photos on social media sometimes, saw Kioma smiling with a woman who could hold her hand in public, and felt happiness for her mixed with grief for what they'd lost. On their second anniversary, Jae-hyun found Amara on the terrace at 3 a.m, their usual meeting time for conversations that couldn't happen in daylight. Do you regret it? He asked. Everything we've done? Every day. she answered honestly. But I'd probably make the same choices again. My family is safe, yours is secure. We've protected what we were supposed to protect. At what cost? Everything that mattered. He sat beside her, and for the first time in 2 years took her hand. Not for performance, not for cameras, just human contact between two people who understood loss. I've been thinking, he said slowly, about changing things, coming out publicly, restructuring our marriage as the partnership it actually is, living honestly even if it costs us everything. Would you really do that? I don't know, probably not. The fear is too deeply embedded, but I think about it. He looked at her. What would you do if I gave you complete freedom? If I ended this arrangement right now? I'd probably stay anyway, she admitted, because leaving feels like admitting we did this for nothing. Like all the sacrifices were meaningless, so we're trapped by our own choices, imprisoned by the very freedom we thought we were protecting. They sat in silence, watching Busan breathe below them. Two people who'd traded love for security, and were learning to live with the exchange rate. Is this what happiness looks like? Amara asked. Or just survival dressed in expensive clothes? I think, Jaehyun said quietly, it's the best we can manage given who we are and what we chose. And maybe that has to be enough. But they both knew it wasn't, would never be. Was just the price they'd agreed to pay for protecting everyone except themselves. The city glittered below them like broken promises made beautiful by distance. And in the space between what they'd wanted and what they'd gotten, Amara and Jaehyun existed. Two people bound by duty, separated by desire, learning that sometimes the cruelest prisons are the ones you build yourself. The ones with ocean views and marriage certificates. The ones that look like freedom until you realize the door was never actually locked. You just forgot how to remember what walking away looked like. Somewhere in Lagos, Kiyoma was sleeping beside someone who could love her in daylight. Somewhere in the penthouse, Minseok was sleeping in a separate bedroom, close but never close enough. And on the terrace, two people who'd sacrificed everything for survival held hands and pretended it was enough. That duty was a suitable replacement for desire. That they'd made the right choice even as the weight of that choice pressed down like ocean depths, crushing and inescapable and utterly, devastatingly permanent.